If you're confused about what shoe to get, you'll learn how to find and fit the best shoe for you. Hey, Glenn here from Mehab, where our goal is to educate and empower you to take control of your recovery. As always, this information is for educational and informational purposes only. Today's topic is one of the most common questions that I get regarding plantar heel or foot pain. What is the best shoe and what shoe should I be wearing? If you look online, it's battle royale between the shoes. We've got the barefoot purists, we've got the maximal cushion lovers, we've got the zero drop evangelists, we've got the wide toe box warriors. The reality is that shoe fitting is highly individualized. What works for one may not work for the other, and fitting should be based upon intrinsic and extrinsic factors. Intrinsic factors are exclusive to you. They are your foot structure, your arch height, your ankle range of motion, your body weight, age, and so on. The extrinsic factors are factors from the environment. What kind of surface are you walking on? How long are you standing for? What type of activities do you do? What's your occupation? What's your daily living like? I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. So if we're talking about an older adult, so as people age, we get a thing called fat pad atrophy. On the bottom of our heels, we have a fat pad. That fat pad's job is to absorb some shock and provide some cushioning. As we get older, that starts to thin, becomes less resilient and tolerant of forces. Without that extra cushioning, all those forces are transferred to other structures within the foot, which can lead to heel pain, even in the absence of plantar fasciitis or fasciopathy. In cases like this, a gel insert or a slightly cushioned heel can be really beneficial. It provides an artificial cushion where the natural cushion is no longer as effective. It gives back some of that absorption, but there is a little bit of a caveat. We have to be really careful about not over cushioning in certain populations. For example, if a person has balance deficits. So commonly in older adults, we do see balance deficits, and they're usually a combination of visual deficits. We start to lose our sight a little bit more, some decreases in general muscle mass and strength, or they could have systemic diseases such as diabetes, which cause peripheral neuropathy or peripheral vascular disease. And what those things do is they end up making the nerves kind of go numb, and so you can't really feel the ground. In cases like that, we want to be careful about adding too much cushion because it further reduces their ability to feel the ground. And when we decrease that connection with thick foam or a gel, it can cause increased instability just because of the proprioception is muted just a little bit more. On a side note, most of the balance deficits that we see with older adults are actually from visual loss. We use vision as a point of reference, so when our visual acuity decreases or we're working in low light areas, we can't see what's level anymore, and that kind of throws off our balance. So as you can see, just purely from that example, the shoe fitting has to be quite individualized, and this one size fits all or barefoot or minimal shoes are the best is really not appropriate. The device that we use to measure for shoes is called the Brannock device, and that is what this is called here. You'll see it in any kind of reputable shoe store, but today we're going to kind of go over how you should be using this, what my recommendations are, because they're a little bit different than the manufacturers. So there's actually three things that this device can measure. One is the foot length, one is the foot width, and the other one is the arch length. And in my opinion, the arch length is probably the most important part of it all. So the foot length is just as it sounds. It measures for the entire length of your foot. They put the heel in the Brannock device and see where the toe lines up, and that determines what shoe size they get. This is how most people actually measure their foot. In some people that can be okay, but we want to be as accurate as we can and get the best fit that we can, so we want to use all three of these measurements. The foot width is pretty simple. That is this part here, where we're putting it and going up against the side of our foot to determine what our shoe width will be. Again, most people measure this in standing, which is partially correct, but we are going to make some modifications to that, and you'll understand why. Arch length, as I mentioned, is probably the most important in my opinion, and that is measured using this little piece of the Brannock device right here. And I'm going to go through and show you exactly how to measure my foot and how using the arch length changed what size shoe that I wear and any things that were going on with my foot. The manufacturer recommends that these should all be done in standing. And while I agree that foot length should be done in standing, I disagree with arch length and foot width, and I think we can do a little bit better. I believe we need to do a combination of sitting, standing, and fully loaded positions to get the best fit. So why is arch length so important? If arch length is not matched to the shoe, it allows for movement within the shoe forwards and backwards. If this is your arch length of the shoe, and then we have your arch length on it, and it's actually a little bit bigger, you can see that there's movement in here. Whereas if we align it up correctly, there is minimal movement that's going to occur. So we want to make sure we match that because it provides some mechanical resistance to movement within the foot. What we'll see typically in somebody who doesn't have a arch length that's been fit appropriately, we will see lots of calluses on the feet, especially on the bottom of the feet, blisters, usually around the metatarsal heads or the front of the forefoot. We'll see calluses on the ends of the toes, and we'll also often see bruising or nails being lost from damage of the foot sliding around in the shoe. Secondly, if the arch is not set to match the foot, it provides minimal arch support. So most inserts are like a foam composite, and they have some compression, right? They have some give to them. They will become more stiff and more resistant to compression as they get more compressed. So for example, if you take a piece of foam and you squeeze it, the harder you squeeze it, the harder the foam starts to become as it becomes more compressed. So if we're matching the foot in a standing position where the arch length is already elongated or lengthened, and then we're matching the arch to it, we're giving room for that arch to compress, the arch support, to compress even a little bit more. So it basically creates a soft zone where the arch can lengthen even more, right? So if we're measuring it and the arch is here, and now we measure the arch length, this is not compressed, the arch support is not compressed, so it will yield more. Whereas if we match it non-weighted and then we put weight on it, what will happen is as your weight goes onto it, this arch support will become a little bit stiffer and more resistance and give you a little bit more support. As you will soon see, I actually have a fairly rigid foot. It doesn't move around much, it doesn't stretch much, my arch doesn't really flatten a ton when I put all my body weight onto it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Feet are different, and there's no increased risk of developing an injury, whether you have a rigid foot or a very, very flexible foot. It's perfectly fine. So if you look at my foot here, we'll do my right foot first, and I place my heel in here, and I'm doing this obviously in standing. You will look at my foot length, and it's around 12.5 US, right? But if I go ahead and I move this part of the device up and I measure my arch length, you'll see that it lines up around 14.5. And that's a big difference between 13 and now I'm at 14.5. So when I used to wear size 13, I had constant calluses and blisters on the bottom of my feet and toes, and my toenails would bruise and I would lose them. And that's because my foot was sliding around because I was just matching my foot length and not my arch length. So once I switched to size 14 to 15 US, depending on what brand of shoe I was wearing, all of my foot symptoms stopped. I had no more foot pain, I had no more calluses, I didn't lose my toenails anymore, I didn't have any fatigue or cramping in my foot either. Because what was happening is that my foot unconsciously was trying to grip the bottom of the shoe to stop it from sliding around, and that's where I was getting the calluses from and the blisters. I was obviously losing my toenails because my foot was sliding and jamming into the end of the shoe, causing them to bruise. You also want to measure both feet because often one foot is a little bit bigger than the other one, and that's the one that you want to go off. Go off by the largest value that you're reading off the Brannock device, whether it's your foot length or whether it's your arch length. So some people will have a shorter arch and longer toes. Some people have a longer arch and shorter toes. So if that's the case, people with longer toes generally end up going with the shoe length as their measurement. People with shorter toes generally end up going with the arch length. The other thing that does is the shoes are designed to flex at a certain breaking point. And when you measure it the way that I have, that break point in the shoe lines up really, really well with your toes. The widest part of the shoe is also now the widest part of your foot. You generally tend to have a wider toe box and a little bit more room in your toe box, which can help with some of your symptoms as well. So next is foot width. And again, the manufacturer recommends that we do this in standing. I prefer to take it to one step further. So when we walk and we're about to push off with our foot, we have most of our weight, we're kind of driving down on that forefoot, which splays our forefoot a little bit more. That's how I like to measure the foot. My foot width doesn't really change between sitting, standing, or forefoot loading. This is just because my foot is a little bit rigid. Some people will have more flexibility in there. People with hypermobility disorders. And people with hypermobility disorders, we want to be a little bit more cautious about prescribing foot width. They will have a tendency to just keep spreading and flattening. And we actually want to use some of the shoe width to provide artificial support to decrease the stress on those structures. But again, I'll do another video specifically about those types of feet. So here are kind of the golden rules in this summary. Measure your foot length in weight bearing, just standing on it. Measure your arch length in non-weight bearing or sitting, and measure your foot width with full load, almost all your weight on your front foot as though you were walking in there. And that'll give you a good indication of how much splay that you actually have, and that will determine the width of your shoe as well. Always use the larger of the measurements, and always double check both feet, and whichever one has the largest value, whether it's toe length or arch length, use that as the sizing for your shoe, or at least the starting point. So as you can see, fitting a shoe is not really a one size fits all. It's very, very specific. What works for you may not work for somebody else, and it should really fit not only your form, but also your function as well. If this helped you, please like, share, and subscribe. Drop your questions in the comments below. I try and get back to everyone as soon as I can. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one.